Hey everybody, thank you so much for tuning in to today's conversation. It is always awesome to have you here joining us, and a big welcome to those of you who are listening to the show for the first time. Today, I'm welcoming Walter Carter for a raw and expansive conversation on the inner journey through struggle, healing, and self-discovery. We explore the highs and lows of life and how the moments we often resist, loneliness, insecurity, emotional pain, can actually become portals for rebirth. Walter opens up about reconnecting to self-love after the end of his marriage and what it means to form a deeper relationship with yourself through compassion, breath, and awareness. We talk about befriending difficult emotions, dealing with shame and self-judgment, and learning to sit with what arises without needing to fix or flee it. We also touch on themes like high-functioning depression, codependency, self-judgment, and the unseen belief systems that quietly shape how we experience life. This episode is a reminder that transformation doesn't come from fixing yourself, but from meeting yourself fully, with respect, honesty, and curiosity. This was a very different one. I really enjoyed how interactive it was, and it kind of reminds me of why we started the podcast in the first place. Just two guys talking about the challenges that they're going through. As you guys know, sometimes these are recorded months in advance, so it's super interesting for me to listen back to this and get an insight into my mindset at the time. I'm really interested to hear what you guys think about this, so do please let me know. If you could kindly like, subscribe, and leave a review, I'd really appreciate it, and it means that we can reach more men who are navigating their journey. Thank you so much. I'm Harrison, and this is the Growth Voyage podcast. Enjoy. Walter, welcome to the show. Great to have you on, man. The place where I always like to start these conversations is simply where you're at now, what life events have led you up to this point in time today.
Sure. Pleasure to be here. Harrison, thanks for inviting me to be on the podcast. Brief background just about you and I. We met at this amazing men's group gathering last Saturday. It starts at 8 a.m. here in Chengdu. And it's right near the water at this beautiful hotel. And it was just an amazing group, sort of breakout group session we all had together. So you and I met, and then you invited me to be part of the podcast this week. I very much appreciated it. I took you up on the offer, drove the scooter at 6:30 a.m. from Ubud to come to the men's group, but also to be part of this. So I'm happy to be here. And just quickly, for where I'm at in life, sometimes I have to laugh, I have to smile to prevent me from crying because, life brings ups and downs. It can feel like a roller coaster. I embrace all of what I feel, my emotions, the highs, the lows, and the universe I can feel is with me on my path. Yet, life can be a challenge sometimes, to put it at least. So that's where I'm at. What about you? How about you? How are you feeling in life? What's your emotional state today? Anything persisting in your life today?
Yeah, well, you touched upon sort of life throwing you challenges. I see them as lessons, right? And I'm sure you share the same perspective. I think when your perspective on life shifts, then suddenly these things, they're fucking intense, these moments, these life-changing moments, but you know that you're getting knocked down so that you can build better and stronger foundations onto the next part of your life, right? And that's the attitude I have now, and that's allowed me to have a real joy for life. And we've discussed a couple of times on the pod already how when we're in the trenches, it's quite nice to be there sometimes, because you understand the true beauty of life. And that's what I've experienced in the last maybe 4-5 weeks or so at the time of this recording, where I've had like immense joy, and I've felt the depths of human emotion, but then I've also taken big knocks as well. And I've had, even now, just sort of ego deaths, in the sense of, my perception of who I am and how I come across to the world. Sometimes my external reality doesn't match my internal reality. There's still a sense of imposter syndrome. There's still this sense of trying to live up to the expectations that no one else puts on me. I put them on myself. And I think this is an important lesson, because a lot of the time we don't notice our ego leads us down a certain path, and our priorities can be shifted, right? So for me, I found that over the last 3 or 4 weeks, I was making great strides in my business, helping lots of people, meeting some amazing people like yourself, and that's been really awesome. But then I've also had a reality check of thinking, my priorities are a bit all over the place. I'm chasing something. Okay, what are my real motivations here? Yeah, of course we want to sort of help people, but at what expense? Am I doing that at the expense of my own health and my own motivations? And what I found in my life is, actually, I'm not prioritizing myself enough. I don't have boundaries with myself, right? So for me, and this is a constant journey, by the way, I've been, overcoming sort of people pleasing and setting boundaries with people, but I didn't set boundaries with the most important person, which was myself. And that comes with work. When you say you're going to go to sleep and you think, I could squeeze out another half an hour, and then that half an hour turns into an hour and a half, and then that keeps on going. So I think it's really important. What I've learned is to have boundaries with myself. And to answer your question, right now I feel an immense joy for life, man. I think it's awesome. I think it's fantastic. And I love that you mentioned there about sort of feeling your emotions. I think sensitivity is a superpower, something that my girlfriend reminds me of. It's unfortunately, we're told that sensitivity is a bad thing as men, but I really feel as though if you can really experience that, and I think we all go through points early on where we shut that side of ourselves off, right? Because the world can be harsh to us and we don't know how to react to it, and our defense mechanism is to shut off from the world. But I really believe that when we are open and we do open up to love, then that's where, we can experience very difficult moments, but they're intense. And that's where I think I go in between intensity and intense challenges and perhaps sadness, but then I also have intense joy. And I think that's where, and I think there's also joy in that sadness as well, because you know that you're truly living. So that's my relationship with life currently. It's the incredible times, the good times are incredible, and I don't even like to call them bad times, bro, but the bad times are intense, but then I see the beauty in that, and all of these add up to form your life journey. And even when you're low, I'm like, okay, cool, because I know just around the corner, and this is a really important mindset shift. Whenever you're in a low point, I think I feel so safe there, because I know that a rebirth is coming.
Yes, very true.
Have you found that in your experience, and are you connected with that even now when it has been a bit more challenging?
Resonates so much, everything you're saying. I can connect to the truth in a lot of it. I chuckle when you're saying, sort of in a way, when the spectrum of emotions we're experiencing, and let's say some of the more difficult ones, more difficult intensity, let's say like terror or deep loneliness. It could be like deep feelings of embarrassment. It's taken years for me to practice how to keep an open heart, open mind, in not judging the emotions that simply exist. They're there, that come up, they arise for a reason. There's so much information behind all of these emotions that require us to connect to, process, decode, learn from all these lessons that we can learn from. And you're talking about a bit of like joy sometimes in like, loneliness or the difficult emotions. I agree. I've been noticing that when like sitting in deep feelings of loneliness lately. I've gone through heartbreak. My marriage ended. It's been extremely difficult in ways. I'm processing through, stages of grief. And at the same time, I'm also very accepting and open to what the future holds. And there's like beautiful moments of rebirth that keep cycling around. So touching on what you're saying, being in that deep loneliness, I've sort of become, again, I start chuckling. I've almost become good friends. Good jolly old friend, loneliness. Good to see you again. 3 days later, oh, we've just met a few days ago. And like, we had a power struggle, or, it felt like I was never going to see the light of day again. And each time I'm like sitting with openness in the loneliness, it doesn't feel as scary or as terrifying or as overwhelming. And I guess just really quickly touching on, let's say, like a therapeutic modality, because I'm a therapist, mental health counselor in Melbourne, Australia. Dialectical behavioral therapy, DBT, has to do with like how to regulate our emotions in a healthy way, how to challenge the emotional tolerance threshold. So it's like lifting weights for emotions. The more you sit with difficult emotions and the higher intensity, the like better we're able to manage that intensity. That loneliness doesn't feel as scary or as intense. It's just much more easily to accept it. So yeah, I can't help but smile with some of what you're telling me. I'm like, I get it. It resonates. So let me ask you, Harrison, can you identify an emotion over the past like days, let's say a more difficult one, higher intensity, that either you've struggled to sit with, or you're changing the relationship that you have with that emotion and how you sort of manage through it? What comes up?
Right. So recently I've been connected with internal family systems, which has been a game changer, not just for me, but for my clients as well. And yeah, the one thing that would come up is, I think, frustration. Frustration was a big one because, yeah, I think everything, and this is what I've realized, there's not one emotion that's separate from the rest. I think they all have, in terms of like quote unquote negative emotions, I think they're all related to the other, because if you have more frustration, then you're going to get more angry, and if you're more angry, then vice versa, right? So yeah, for me it was frustration, I think, and that would come up in loads of different areas depending on my mood. I think recently that shifted because I've like done some breath work and do this type of thing, and I've connected more with my inner child, more than I even thought I did, which is awesome. So for me it was frustration, and I found that the relationship worsens when you try and distract yourself from it. And a lot of the time distraction is obvious, but a lot of the time it's less obvious, right? And it's like even just picking up your phone and scrolling, for example, that's a classic. But how many times do we say, oh, scrolling's bad for you, and you do it fucking anyway? And then I wonder, right, I'm just picking up my phone, and then I try and take a moment now to just really sit with it. And I'm like, okay, why am I actually doing this? Why am I actually picking up the phone? And what's helped me is literally just sitting with the emotions, even though my ego is like, right, come on, we've got to go, we've got to do this thing. It's like, no, hang on a sec, let's give this guy a chance to express himself, what's going on. So I have that conversation with that aspect of my personality, which is the frustration, and it all leads back to our child experience, right? I was very frustrated with things because I wouldn't say my voice, and I wouldn't say what I thought about things, and that's what has become a big part of my life now, is saying what I think, because a lot of frustration would come when I'd say, oh, I wish I'd said that, or I wish I'd done this. So now, I just, in the moment, I'm like, aha, this is a great opportunity now to be the different or the best version of myself. And what does that look like for me? Okay, it's right, actually saying things in the moment, doing things in the moment, and yeah, and also change my mentality. So if something doesn't work out the way I thought it would be, it'd be like, okay, cool, let's try and do better next time. So when it comes to frustration, when I feel that now, I then have a conversation with that part, and I say, okay, cool, why are you frustrated? Oh, well, this guy just, there's a really loud motorbike, and those really loud ones, like they're
They're
unnecessarily.
so annoying. They're so annoying. So
Yeah,
distracted.
it's. I don't think. I think I'll always be activated by that because
Right.
no matter how peaceful I get,
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah. Especially, not to interject, but in the middle of the night, and I'll sleep with earbuds, with earplugs. And let's say my hotel in Ubud was like blocks removed from the main strip. And 2 a.m., I'm hearing that loud motorbike like ride up and down. I'm going, really? This is not the time to be like blazing the acceleration. Please, just keep it quiet. Anyway, back to your thing.
I,
I feel your pain is my point.
I agree. Obviously, yeah. It's
Yeah,
so that's gonna be something, and it's like, okay, right. So you're getting frustrated at that. Okay,
definitely.
right. Is this guy out there to get you? No, he's probably just, for whatever reason, he likes loud motorbikes. All right. And you have to be mature with this one because it's very easy to be like, yeah, I agree, bro. What an idiot, But no, you can't feed that energy. So you're like, okay, look, I understand where you're coming from. I get it. But look, and yeah, thinking, right, why is that actually a problem? Okay, because, he's disturbing your peace. All right, well, let's just have a conversation, and try and understand why that's coming about. And I think you touched upon a good point there, mate. I think this thing does take practice over time to really understand it. But even like I tried out with one of my clients the other day, and it was really powerful for him. He shed a tear because he's like, "Oh my gosh!" And for a long time, he was trying to run away from it. He's like, "Oh, I don't like being alone. I need to keep myself busy and do all this type of thing." But it's like, no, it's like just forming a better relationship with yourself, and then once you do that, you can start showing up differently to the world. And I think it'd be interesting to see what your experience with this has been. But with self-development, I think we can use all these little tools, right? And we can think, okay, right, how to win friends and influence people. Okay, that's a great book. Okay, this is how I can be friends with people. No matter what, and these are great tools, by the way, and really good tips, and they can be helpful. But I think these are all secondary things. First and foremost, I think you need to have a better relationship with yourself, and then that will just translate automatically in the outside world. I don't know if you found that as well.
I'm so glad you brought that up, Harrison, because I agree totally when you're saying resources. Like, yeah, certain resources. It could be book, it could be YouTube video, podcasts, and so on. They're all very useful and helpful. Sort of like secondary reinforcers to the the true healthy work, the healthy relationship that we need to be developing with ourselves. In a way, IFS, it's a form of like reparenting, our younger parts. And we're showing up with, you probably know this already, but you were showing up with that empathy, the presence, active listening, the compassion, the grace, the forgiveness, that soft, that gentleness that all children truly need. It's kind of burned out of a lot of us at a young age, but then over time we show up consciously with that parts check-in, and yeah, we're reparenting those parts so that we can like integrate them into the authentic self again, helping to heal us. That's the true work, and I have learned through time, listening to many experts, that true work, it actually requires us to be showing up consciously each moment that passes, each second that passes, how to bring that knowing, that consciousness and full presence to sort of how to stay embodied as possible. Feeling into, let's say, our gut, what emotions, discomfort may be there, if there is any, and how to sort of acknowledge it, how to be expressive in a safe environment to people who are with us, and more importantly, how we're acknowledging and identifying it ourselves, so that we're not abandoning those parts again and again and again, because ultimately it's inevitable. If we abandon those emotions, those parts that are yearning for our attention and our time, they may be feeling neglected, they may be feeling, whatever, that's all valid. They're going to find a way to come back up, cycle back around, yearn for our attention. We'll be in the middle of like a gathering, and it could be an insecurity that pops up. It could be a random emotion that pops up. It could be something else. So all that to say, it's so important to devote the time so that we're acknowledging those parts. Relationship with self.
Shall we use that example then? So what would you recommend to people? Let's say they're in a gathering and they're insecure about something. Maybe, I don't know, someone's made a comment about their shirt. Maybe they've got a stain on their shirt or whatever it may be. That's just the example I can think of. So what do you recommend to people? So they've had this insecurity and this feeling in their body. How would you recommend people approach that when they're in a room full of crowded people?
That's hard work. Or, even in a work setting, a meeting, and they have to like present something, they have to contribute to the group, and then insecurities pop up. So for example, there's different steps. There's like all these therapeutic modalities that people could use. Let's take acceptance commitment therapy, for example. The short list of that is, first we have to bring curiosity and attention within ourselves to detect what we may be noticing. So for example, are we noticing a shift in our mood? Are we noticing a shift in our feeling? It could be just like grazing the hairs on our forearm in terms of sensitivity that has shifted. But practicing over time how to perfect that ability, we identify, okay, I'm noticing something's off. There's an insecurity there. There's a tightness in my body. There's like a physical change. Maybe we then use the breath as the guide, as the anchor, to help allow for a little bit more space between like our awareness and what we may be feeling or thinking. So that extra breath helps allow for a bit more space, not just physical space, but it's a form of like mental space. Allows us to sort of like feel out. It's like inner feelers. Okay, what's there? You try to detect. Okay, I'm feeling insecure because that person mentioned something about their marriage, how happy they are with kids and life's so great and they're making money and they just bought a new house, and I'm like, it's just flicking insecurity after insecurity of like, oh, my life is not where I thought it would be, and self-judgment. But then there's the IFS component. You can, with that healthy relationship with self, identify the insecurities are coming up very quickly. It becomes accelerated over time how well we can tap in and have the self-talk, healthy self-talk, noticing the insecurities are coming up. Walter, you're not feeling as an adequate partner. You're not feeling like you're a capable human being. You're feeling less than. You're not feeling good enough as a human being for age 37, where societal expectations condition you that where you should be. You feel like, your failure as a husband. You feel like you're letting your family down. Like, this is all rapid, cycling through, acknowledging the insecurities. Then you don't put judgment. Okay, that's there. I accept that that's there. And then the reparenting of like, I see you. I'm here with you. You're not alone. I'm not going to abandon you. These emotions are there. You're starting to feel unsettled. You're starting to not feel good enough. You're starting to feel guilt and shame. You're starting to feel like you're never going to find a woman again. I love you. I care for you. I do this to myself sometimes. I made that commitment to you over the years. I'm not going to abandon you anymore. I'm going to do the best I can to show up for you, even if that means you just hearing my voice. Just know I'm here for you. All right, take a bite of your burger. Americans, we love burgers. Burgers and fries. That's just like a quick idea that comes to mind. What do you think when you hear that?
Yeah, it makes sense. I think a lot of the time it just ends up in a spiral of negative self-talk, right? So it's like you feel a certain way. Oh, why are you even? And then you go, why are you feeling that way? And then you stop having this internal dialogue with yourself, and you don't even know you're having an internal dialogue. Whereas even if that just sounds like a lot, which you just said, which I think makes total sense, by the way. But like you said, it's a process. I think just acknowledging that it's there is a good step. And you mentioned an important point there of just not identifying with it, as if like, okay, right, this is a separate part of me, and then as you're not wrapped up in your own head. I think that's really important, and also reminds me of overwhelm as well. A lot of the time we can find ourselves in overwhelm, and that's where, oh, we got to do this, we got to do this, and then. But then actually, I think we can. I've now thought, this is just for me, what's worked for me. I think in those moments we can choose whether or not we want to be overwhelmed or not. I think we choose overwhelm whether we know it or not. So when I'm getting overwhelmed now and I catch myself, I'm like, okay, you know what? This is the mind's overwhelmed. Let's just step outside of it for a second. Let's just be. Yeah. And I think that, I think you can, I don't think that process can take too long. I think learning to just detach from the mind, again, the power of now has come up on this pod a couple of times. That's a great place to start in terms of, okay, what do you mean separating yourself from the mind or the ego? But yeah, okay, that's the mind's problems and that's not me. And I think when you create that, it means that you can, all right, cool. You've got that, you're aware of it, but let's just be, because we are just an observer, right?
Exactly.
We're just like this glass is the same as our thoughts. They're all just objects, and that I think is the number one thing. I think in personal development, the best thing that you can do is to learn how to. I think just identifying as who you are, but then your being, but then you are separate from your mind and your ego. And I think the best shift I see with my clients, and I'll be interested after this to hear what the biggest changes you've noticed with your guys, is when they start talking about, oh, my ego got the better of me. I'm like, yes, that stuff makes me happy, because then it's not something like, oh, like I got really angry this day and I felt depressed, and like my ego was feeling sad or hurt by this, and and that for me has been the biggest development. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that and what revelations you've seen with your clients.
I agree as well. And it's not to be agreeable with you. I keep saying I agree. It's because the truth resonates, and it's part of how I show up as a therapist to support clients. And there's just a lot of truth in it. How to become the observer and detach, that detachment process. So creating like inner space, then detaching, becoming the observer. It gives us a lot of self-empowerment to then become more flexible in a decision to make, rather than like the thoughts or emotions are taking control, taking the lead, influencing our decision making. Like, that's disempowering free, abundant creativity in a way, to freely create and express consciously through our vessel. Maybe let's say of an openness, the universe using us as a vessel to freely express. If we don't have the power to detach from thoughts and emotions and feelings, we're not actually fully self-empowered. Like, old, outdated conditioning is leading our life. So I just had to touch on that point. So detaching is so important. And you're sharing how when you hear some of your clients talking about, they de-identify with ego, that's showing progress. That's their own progression and self-work they've done to enhance that ability. And that's pretty amazing. For me, some of the clients that I have, it's a similar version. It's more when they're expressing, like, as sessions progress, how they're applying some of these skills and strategies to detach, and that they'll give me some examples of, I was able to catch it. I was in an argument with my husband or my wife, or my kids were acting up. And normally, let's say with example of parents and kids, I would say something to them, telling them what they had to do, but I caught myself. It's those moments where I'm like, oh, yes, that's where you take power back within yourself. And you're not slipping into unconscious conditioning, which ultimately is negatively affecting the child. It's going to be negatively affecting the relationship that you have with the child on some level. You pause, create detachment. Then you start considering, what are my options? What are healthier options of how I can interact with my child in a way that I can show up present in the ways that they need? Healthy attunement to my child. And so some of the clients, they had a long way to go from the starting point, starting to see me till now. I'm like, wow, I'm just so proud to see the work that they've put in, and how they want to become a better parent, a better partner, a better person. That would be a big one for me. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think just this idea of being a better person can help a lot of our decision making, right? So, for example, if I catch myself doing something that is not aligned with the highest or best version of myself, that's where I can go, no, I'm not going to do this. And I say this to my guys as well. Oh, what should I do in this situation? Well, that's pretty obvious, mate. Oh, really? What is it? It's like, what would the best version of yourself do?
Yeah.
Right? And it can
Well,
be
I
that
don't
simple.
know because I'm not the best version. I'm just assuming some of them may say that.
Well, I make it a focus point because I think that's where we've got to be looking towards in terms of, right, who's the person we want to become, and let's become that person right now.
Exactly.
It's not, yeah, and I think we can then move into talk about depression now because from my understanding of it, and I'm always learning, but from my conversations with people and through my own lived experience and through my guys, it's okay. Right, all this stuff has happened. Let's experience those emotions first of all. Let's actually embrace all this stuff that has happened to us and make sure we get it all out of our system. Then, right, let's look at the identity we want to create and the life that we want to create for ourselves. And once that idea is pretty specific, obviously it's going to change over time, but once we have an idea of where we want to go and we reverse engineer the steps to get there, then we're going to be motivated to take action. And I think a lot of the time we're stuck because we don't necessarily know where we're going. But I'd love to hear your insights on depression itself and whether you've explored similar themes in that regard.
True. Yeah, it's an important topic. Most of us, I would say all of us will be experiencing some form of depression in life. Just to share my own quick view, after living, growing up in America, raised in New York City, lived in East Africa, Tanzania for about 6 months in the 20s, doing volunteer work, living in the Netherlands for 2 years when I was also in my 20s. I have a Polish passport. My mother, she's a Polish immigrant. My father, he's African American, so I'm mixed background. Then now living in Australia, in Melbourne, I'm going to say this perspective through, global lived experience. In order to exist in westernized modern society and strive to live authentically true to ourselves, true to the human design, the way that our human design is built, and actually tap into how to properly heal, how to deconstruct outdated conditioning that doesn't serve us, conditioning that not only we received through family context, societally, culturally, generationally, the list goes on. We're going to be experiencing some levels of depression, whether it's mild or severe, for a certain amount of time to deconstruct what doesn't serve us, shed the old, like the crab shedding the old shell to move into the new. There's going to be points of resistance in order to rebirth, and I say that because we're all going to be experiencing some form of depression. Many people in westernized society, from my perspective, experience forms of depression, but they're higher functioning. They may not be as aware of it because they're distracted, they're busy, they're, let's say addicted or lean on work. And it's no judgment on anyone because I have my own version of it. I'm a therapist, but hey, I have real, true lived experience of I struggle with functional depression. I have deep mother wounds and stuff. The list goes on. Dyslexic. So depression, essentially, from my understanding, not only being a practitioner, but loads of research that I've studied and professionals that I've learned from, is a constant form of grieving emotions that are coming up that need us to process and tap into. It could be stories that we've told ourselves, we've attached to without realizing, inner narratives, and we haven't, fully been able to like shed those stories or detach from them, process why they don't serve us. Other belief systems that just don't serve us as much, that force us and require us to tap into it, deconstruct, redesign them. Then there's another side to it, and I'll be interested in like your feedback, your thoughts, just from what I'm saying. I throw a lot out there. I'm sorry, I kind of dump, I dump a lot of information, but there's a lot to say. That's good stuff. So I'll try to sort of monitor what I'm saying.
Not at all, man. It's I love it. I think our brains work quite similar. I remember, it's funny, just on a side tangent, I remember being on a guest podcast, and I was a guest on another podcast, and during the interview, the host said, "Oh yeah, I'm not really a big fan of the like long Joe Rogan podcasts that are over 2 hours. Like that's not really my thing. I prefer 40 minutes, short, sharp, to the point." I'm like, all right, cool. And got to the end, and we looked at the time, and we'd gone for 2 hours 20 minutes.
Right.
And I remember at the end, he was like quick fire questions, and that took about an hour. And you're not going to get a short answer out of me, brother. I promise you that.
So you understand how it is. Yeah, when conversation's flowing and when the information's flowing, and when the being is comfortable to just do its thing, it seems to be a beautiful process. So yeah,
absolutely. And that I don't think life is, and also just on another tangent, here we go on these tangents, but life's not black and white. It's very gray, and there's so many different, you can't give like one word answers to shit, like there's so many layers. And like we're talking about the belief systems as well, there's so many different factors that go into play. The reason why that's interesting to me is because I think a lot of the time we're unaware of our belief systems. Like, how the fuck can you be? For a long time, I thought I had a normal upbringing. I thought I was, and don't get me wrong, I was very privileged in many different ways, right? But I did not have a quote unquote normal upbringing. And what even is normal? What I think normal upbringings perhaps aren't so normal, right? But point is, I experienced a lot of emotional challenges and took on a lot from the age of 6 onwards. And looking back on that, I'm thinking, wow, it's not only until even recently, I would say, in the grand scheme of my life, where I've really had revelations and realized, oh, okay. And that's when you realize your belief systems have been shaped by your subjective experience of the world, and that translates into everything. I had Nick Elvery on the podcast. He's a hypnotherapist. He was saying how our relationship with money that's influenced by our upbringing, right? And so many different limiting beliefs there. And again, I think if you're unaware of your limiting beliefs, then you're not going to be aware of it, obviously. But my point is like, they're
trapping you on some level without you fully being aware of it.
100%. And limiting you. I wonder, maybe the answer is, yes, it is what we do. But I think it is true. I think you need someone who you can just have a conversation with. And if it's not a therapist or a mindset coach, I think just grab somebody who you trust, who's going to be real with you, and just have a conversation. And if they know what they're doing, all they have to do is just point out, okay, things that they notice, right? The words that you're using, right? So if you write out your dream life, for example, this is an exercise I like to do. Write out your dream life and describe it for me. And you can notice just in the language that they use, you can see, oh, okay, well, this is how they view the world. And then you can say, okay, right, you sound like a bit like a victim here. And it sounds like you're angry towards these types of people. And you're talking about your dream life and all these different things. I think just having someone evaluate what you're saying, even your words, can be a good indicator of your belief system. So, maybe even having a trusted friend, and you could even go, quite deeper. You could say, "Hey, buddy, listen, I really want you to just tell me the things that you think I can work on, or what are the things that you've noticed about my personality." And then that will tell you, okay, I've noticed you're this. And when you're like, what? No, that's not really. You think I come across that way? Yeah. Okay, why? And then you can just dig deeper. It's not just a surface level thing. Yeah. Right? It's like, just again, just being curious about yourself. And what we've discussed on the podcast, you can go so deep within it. And yes, even just, I think a great place to start would be, all right, just like you've said, just understand that, okay, why are you angry? And then just really dig deeper and take that time to go deep. But I think a lot of the time it's surface level. And I think that can be an indicator of your beliefs about the world. And my view of the world was tainted for so long. I had no idea. But when I had that, I'll never forget it. It was, New Year's Day. And I remember just having this huge, like, wow, like almost like a eureka moment. I'm like, oh, wow. And it was like my whole belief system of the world just got, and it's like my brain had just, like, the whole program had just been reset. Cause I'm like, oh my gosh, I was seeing the world through this lens of victimhood, and everything's just dark. And I wonder if you had a similar experience or breakthrough like that.
I have my own version of the same thing, and I still battle with it. Sort of, sometimes I can be a bit, I can question, the term victim. It has a negative association, as if like the person who, let's say, gets stuck in a perception of themselves and of the world that life is very unfair. Those emotions that can come with it, and let's say stuck in some of their own like complex emotional trauma, because that's really what we're talking about. If you really start breaking down the deeper nuances of it, it's, there could be complex PTSD, there can be complex emotional trauma that's unacknowledged, unprocessed. There's going to be, other stuff. If people don't have the skill to proactively identify what's coming up, know how to, let's say, process it in a healthy way, and then take active steps to create the story and the narrative that they desire for themselves, apply a bit of Joe Dispenza, create the vision, create the feeling that you desire to have in that future vision, and then actively sort of initiate that feeling in the present moment, so that essentially you attract that future vision. There's many more details to it, like, people struggle, and I struggle with it too. There's so many triggers day to day from past that come up, trigger difficult emotions, and they're trying to pull me into lower vibration. And so it becomes it's like, for example, I'm like, look, I've done my workout for the day. I've already lifted heavy and supersetted. I'm exhausted. But the universe is like, nah, we have another workout in store for you when you don't expect. Then there's a third workout. Then there's a fourth. So I actually show a lot of compassion to, this quote, people who can get stuck in a victim mentality or sort of deep feelings of unfairness. That's how I translate victim mentality. I'm very understanding of that. Yet there are shifts that need to be made. There's like more understanding that people could have about themselves and what's really happening within, and then also how to make the shift into, I'm going to co-create with the universe, co-create with my being, my beautiful human design in the universe that's abundant and wants to tap into me at any given moment and work with me. I want to use these beautiful gifts to then manifest life. But it's easier said than done. I wanted to touch on really quickly some of what you asked about the depression stuff in the past. I don't know, 20 minutes ago. I just wanted to finish on that around how important it is to address our own emotional needs. That's often neglected. Like a big part of persistent depression is the constant grieving, but it's also these emotional needs that we neglect in ourselves without even realizing it. So for example, the need to like feel listened to feel witnessed, to feel heard, to feel valued, to feel a sense of love and care. Not just to get those needs met externally, which can lean into like unhealthy codependency, just to address it, sort of become self-dependent on meeting those needs. And I know that was a tangent, but I felt like, okay, if I don't mention this now, I'm going to forget it. So I wanted to touch back around that.
Well,
Which,
yeah,
yeah,
well, we can expand on that actually, because a lot of the time I feel like we do unconsciously become dependent on other things to
mm,
make us feel a certain way, right? And if you're not careful about it, and that's why sort of I enjoy Bali, because you've got your brothers here, and you suddenly have other men you can speak to and be vulnerable with, and I think that's really important. But then I've also seen with a lot of other people where they can be very dependent on sort of fitness and sport as an outlet. And do I think moving your body is incredibly important? Absolutely. Like, rather than just trying to outthink yourself all the time. But if it becomes a constant escape for you, where you're just constantly doing that thing and constantly keeping yourself busy, for me, it was work as well. I'd always be busy.
mm,
But then I'm thinking, how much work am I actually getting done? If I'm giving myself 12 hours, which is what I was doing initially, I was thinking, hang on a sec, what am I actually doing in these 12 hours? And am I subconsciously making myself busy so I can avoid being by myself? I wonder if that's something you've observed as well. Like, where is the sort of healthy balance? I keep using this
mm.
term balance. I think it's very difficult to have literally a perfect balance,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
at what point do we go overboard with the busyness, and how can we, do you think we need to sort of make time for being alone, like almost schedule that in, or how do we go about it?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's all subjective. Each person has their own recipe that they're creating for their life, and what may work well enough for me one day doesn't work the next day. It's constant refining of the balance, and I'm sure the same will go for you. Um, I feel that the the power we derive from awareness in knowing when we're leaning on something externally versus we make that conscious decision in the moment. Oh, okay, that thing came up. I feel the urge to, like, look at the phone or check, the messages, just to see on the phone that there's like a notification. There's a part of me that goes, okay, I'm wanted. I can take my sweet time and reply. Or, something stupid like that for me. Or then if there's no notifications, I get so desperate sometimes. I'll go in my emails and just scroll through and being like, I've looked at these twice today. There's like 50 untapped emails. Maybe I didn't see an email that is hidden in there that I can look at and just will catch me off guard. Very unhealthy. So all that to say, I feel it's just so important, the awareness that we have in we regain the power when we decide, okay, I notice the urge in me to like lean on partner, to lean on phone addiction, to lean on doing the work. It's a form of external soothing, self-soothing. I'm just identifying it. Okay, that's there. Like you were saying earlier, like, come back to the body, come back to the present moment of like what I'm feeling. Oh, I feel like uncomfortable because something in me is yearning for more. The present moment doesn't feel enough. Something in me, there's like a hole, or there's like a feeling of neglect. I'm wanting more. Oh, okay. What's not good enough right now in this very moment? Well, I want to feel listened to by someone, and by texting someone, it's a form of covert manipulation, actually. I'm going to text them so that they reply. It's a form of conditional, like, love. I don't want to go into like semantics, but it's throwing the bait out. I'd send a text, they reply. It's when their reply hits me that there's a high chance they're going to say something soothing, caring, loving, that's going to provide me a sense of, soothing. And then I go, oh yeah, that's great. Which is a form of codependency. So, I'm stretching that example around to highlight we all do it. It's not a bad thing. It's not bad nor good. It just is. It's part of the human condition. But we regain more self-empowerment when we make that choice, that conscious choice, and with awareness, that's happening. let me decide what is best for me. Okay, it's coming up. I still want to text my girl. I still want to check my, notifications. Or I'm like, you know what? Let me sit for another minute with this distressing feeling and get comfortable with what it feels like. And then after a minute, if it's still like really unbearable or really uncomfortable, okay, I'm gonna text my girl, or I'll call someone, or I'll, whatever, distract with work. What do you think?
Yeah, man. Well, firstly, I really appreciate your honesty there because, and also I think that's a quite a high level of awareness as well. Even just texting. I mean, I always thought there was an opposite problem where at least in my case, I don't text people enough in my case. Certainly, I'm really making a conscious effort now. If someone just pops into my mind, just sending them a text, and I think that's allowed me to keep on top of friendships. But yeah, I think also just embracing that. Yeah, there are going to be codependencies out there. We're just being aware of them. I think can be enough sometimes, and yeah, just being honest with yourself. I think a lot of the times we struggle because we're not honest with ourselves, and we have this perception of who we are, whereas and I say this as well with my guys. There's a lot of resistance comes because in their mind they're a high achiever, they're a high worker, but then the reality is they're getting very distracted in the work that they do, and they get distracted. Perhaps they call themselves lazy and all this other thing. And the reason why that is such a big pain point for them is because that doesn't match up with their identity of themselves. So it's like, okay, well, you've either got to match that identity or you've got to embrace that sometimes maybe you're lazy, maybe you are lazy. Okay, cool. And then there's no resistance there. You cut off the resistance. So that's
True.
that's an interesting one. I think just being just fully honest with yourself and where you're at in life. And coming back to the depression, I think a lot of the time it's happened because the gap between who we are and who we think we are is too big for us not to see that, right? And
True.
I think just being honest with, okay, you know what, and almost just surrendering. We talk about surrender a lot on this podcast, just surrendering to anxiety, to feelings in your body, but also surrendering to reality. Just like, I've had that feeling quite a few times now where I'm just there and I'm just like, I just go, yeah, okay, just just have me. I've just surrendered. I'm just like, I've got all this shit in my life to sort out. And then it's just so freeing to just be like, okay, you know what? Just have me. Not literally, but I mean, no, I love life. Please, but no, like,
knock on wood. University wants to stay.
Yeah, no, I just think just surrendering to reality and just being aware, okay, you know what? I don't have my shit together, and you know what? I'm still here. I'm still alive, and I think just being in touch with that is important, right? And
Absolutely.
it can help us quite a lot.
Absolutely. I wanted to ask you a question. It's touching on some of this as well. I feel like you're mentioning the difference between who we perceive ourselves to be at times versus how we actually are, and the difference is what they call like dissonance. You may know that, like that's the discrepancy. That's part of this ongoing struggle, in humanity of like, which is very confronting for most of us when the dissonance is reflected back to us, in the form of mirror through other people, and that creates like inner conflict and tension points and so on. I want to like respond after you, but what would you identify as maybe a part of your life or personality that you may struggle with, like a sense of dissonance, or like a little inner conflict, or there's tension points you're like wanting to bring more awareness to, grow, learn about? What comes to mind for you?
Oh, I think the perfectionism is a big one. And yeah, I was discussing this with a couple of guys today, and I think the tension comes within me when I have created this identity for myself to the outside world, and it's okay, right? I should be like that, and I see this. I'm like, okay, I should be, whether it's posting every day, and I should be getting all my non-negotiables done, and I should be doing this and doing this and doing this, and I think that's where I think the tension builds up for me, and that's where that's where the overwhelm comes from. Is because I take on all this responsibility, and no one else is giving that to me. It's like I've got to take responsibility for taking responsibility. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of conflict comes because, yeah, sometimes when I see people who are, yeah, again, I love that analogy of like people are mirrors, right? And they're mirroring something back to you. And I look at people sometimes, and I catch myself even like not recently, but yeah, certainly in the past couple months where I've looked at someone and I thought, oh, like they're not really doing anything, you know, they're just lying about, and it's almost this, and I'm like, hang on, why am I getting annoyed for someone for just chilling the fuck out? And then it's like, actually, hang on.
People need downtime to
Of course they do, and it's just like, hang on, because I'm angry at them because I'm not giving myself the time to fucking relax.
Exactly.
Yeah, so it's just everyone's a mirror, bro, and yeah, just I've caught myself so many times just getting on that high horse, right, and just thinking that you're better than everyone else. Like, you're not. We're all the fucking same.
I know.
We all just live our lives differently, and the second that you think you're better than someone else, it's like, nah, bro, come on, you need to be taken down a peg or two. And
Definitely.
yeah, that's something I've noticed as well, is thinking that's been a big one for me. It's just like looking at someone, judging them, and then realizing, okay, I'm not judging them, I'm judging myself. And I'm judging myself because, again, coming back to boundaries, I don't have boundaries with myself. I don't tell myself, I don't stop working when I say I'm going to fucking stop working, and I'm overstepping my own boundaries, and I'm taking it out on that motherfucker over there.
Well, exactly. You're not respecting yourself and your time enough. The way that maybe a belief in you exists, and then projects out to the outside world. I agree. Yeah, it's great. You could be vulnerable in that way, and it seemed like almost a bit of a learning moment for you, or a moment of expansion, just bringing more awareness to that for yourself. But totally, we all do it. Become projections of unconscious judgments of ourselves.
And then also, I think we need acceptance that we are judgmental. Like, I think with those, it's in our program to be judgmental. So also being, you mentioned compassion before, compassion with others, but then also with ourselves. So even if we catch ourselves judging people, it's like acknowledging that, and then being like, okay, cool, right, it's just in our nature. So yeah, learned so much from today's episode. We've covered a lot of ground. Biggest takeaways from this is awareness is fucking key. Compassion is key. So much other stuff as well, and we'll put all that in the introduction on Spotify. And yeah, we'll head on over into the closing traditions of the podcast.
Sure thing.
What we'll do is, we've got 2 questions which we ask every conversation, and then the final question is a question from one of the Growth Voyage listeners on our Instagram. So the first question, it's quite lighthearted compared to our conversation today, and usually the hardest question, it is a song recommendation.
Oh, that's interesting. I may have to look at like Spotify playlist.
Yeah, mate, do what you got to do, man.
I mean, there's been loads. There's been nothing but music for me this past 2 weeks here in Bali. Let's see. There so many different artists, but I'm pulling up right now. Let's see.
I appreciate it's also very tricky to pick just one out of many.
I know. There really is. I was like, oh, do I choose this song? It's a bit dirtier of a song, but it's feel good vibes. I would say this song. This has been a theme for maybe the past couple months. She's a British sort of like feel good dance, like R&B kind of dance artist. Liv East. She's semi big. Liv East is her name. And it's a song called Love Frequency. I think it's just an amazing song. There's like a remix as well. But it actually has been evoking so many emotions from me as I'm like grieving this marriage separation and breakup, and helping me connect to the self-love within and the beautifully abundant divine universe that's with me at all times. just keeping my heart open to give myself love and receive love and give love to the world. So yeah, the artist is Live East, and the song name is Love Frequency.
I love that,
That's my
and
song.
that's what my mission is now: is love and get people to love, show love to the world, and love themselves. And then I think if everyone does that, then I think all of our problems are solved more or less. So
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely,
that's a
definitely.
great message. Second question is a book recommendation.
Um, yeah, there is a book, and why am I forgetting the name of the author? But the book title is called The Map, and I'm like halfway through it. But I follow this guy on Instagram. He posts every day, like 30 times a day. The book essentially is about growing self awareness. Some of what we were talking about today, how to identify all the subconscious processes that are constantly seeking external validation of our childhood trauma wounds, feelings of abandonment, feelings of rejection, not feeling good enough, not feeling worthy of love, feeling inadequate as a partner, or like all these different things that exist in all of us at some point. The book discusses keep bringing your awareness and attention back to yourself. When you feel that urge to send a text to the girl, or go and eat pasta, or go and drink alcohol, or go and soothe with sex or something like that, the book essentially just keeps talking about redirect it back to yourself. Ask the question, why is this coming up? What's the feeling? Where's this coming from? I can be there to show up for myself, reparent myself. It's like form of IFS stuff. So the name of the title is The Map. I don't know the author. Sorry.
Awesome, man. Well, we'll put it in the description. So if you do want to check out that book, it will be in the show notes. So go and check that out.
Great.
That sounds awesome.
Thanks,
I can't
Harrison,
wait.
for having me. Really appreciate you, man. You're a great guy.
Mate, you're most welcome. We do actually have one more question,
Oh, do you? Okay, yeah. Go ahead.
which is from one of the Growth Voyage listeners, and it's from
Nice.
Nick Reck, and he's actually asked a selection of questions.
Oh,
So
okay,
I get to choose one,
yeah.
and yeah, he has asked, what are two things you would do differently if you were young again?
That's always tough. There's always like the argument, oh, I wouldn't change a thing in life. Yeah, I get that. I accept that. But I want to indulge the question. I would, and I'm going to, I feel emotions trying to bubble up as I'm about to say it. I would seek out more embodied men who live in a balance of masculine and feminine in a healthy way at young age. Like this has been a like created many setbacks for me as an adult male. My father's passed away for eight years. I haven't had embodied men in my life consistently, and that's part of what's brought me to the men's group, especially with more embodied men there. So seeking out mentors, role models, more embodied men at younger age.
Wow, that is an incredible piece of advice right there. So important, and I can definitely relate to it. And I think a lot of the time we look outwards for inspiration, and perhaps it might be our parents who are inspiration. But I actually think, right, until we find these people, because some people are blessed to have fantastic parents and incredible role models, right? And at the end of the day, everyone's just doing their best. But I think, right, yeah, we can take pieces of everyone else and how they act, but ultimately, I think we've got to become our own role model eventually as we go into adulthood as well, and be like, right, who is the best version of myself? And then start embodying that. And I think that's fantastic advice. And yeah, if you want to get better at anything, then hang around people who are a specialist or expert in that chosen thing. I know it was Paul Brunson, I think it was, who said, I think his son wanted to learn, oh, how do I have a successful marriage? And he said, oh, very simple, hang around with people who have had successful
Yeah,
marriages.
exactly, yeah.
And then you just absorb everything in through osmosis. So,
Exactly.
yeah, that's a really great piece of advice, mate. So, yeah, thank you for sharing that. And
Sure.
yeah, I also just really appreciate your honesty. And yeah, this has been a really cool conversation. I think it's bouncing ideas off each other. And yeah, it's been really cool. So thank you so much. Where can people find you if they're interested in the work that they do or just want to have a conversation?
Yeah, sure. Well, I am a therapist in Melbourne, Australia. I run my own private practice. So my website is freeformcounseling.com.au. I also do monthly men's groups. I have a meetup.com sort of monthly men. It's emotional support for men in Melbourne. But I've just created two more, one in Sydney, one in Brisbane. I'm going to be doing those too. So, you could just search emotional support group for men in Melbourne. And that's all for now.
Wicked, man. Yeah, we'll put it all in the show notes. Yeah, appreciate you, Walter. Thank you.
Thanks for inviting me and pleasure to be here. Thank you, Harrison. Yeah.
Most
Appreciate you,
welcome,
man.
buddy.
Thanks.
Appreciate